Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking to Environment and Sustainability Consultant Olivia Fox, and she'll be looking at specifically at the SFI and how it's integrating with stewardship schemes and what that means for farmers who are looking to do more with the environment on their farms. So welcome, Olivia. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And as you've not been with us before, could you just give us a brief introduction to yourself and kind of your experience in the role that you've got now?
Yeah, hello. So I work within our environment and sustainability team. I deal with a wide variety of things concerning environmental land management, from providing advice on all of the current schemes that are available publicly and also on private markets, both carbon and biodiversity net gain.
Okay, goodness me. And it's a new and interesting area, and particularly how that integrates with the farms that we're seeing sort of across all of our clients and also through the FBAS scheme. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'm looking forward to the chat that we're going to have. So first of all, just for my benefit as much as everybody else's, what's going on with stewardship schemes and how are they integrating with SFI? Because I'm finding it quite confusing.
Yeah, so we've undergone a massive change, over recent years in the agricultural sector, and particularly the way that they've set up the environmental agreements. So previously we had countryside stewardship that was comprised of mid-tier and higher tier. Now what they've done is essentially combine the SFI offer that became available 2022 and the kind of reissued offer in 23, and combine that with mid-tier. So we're now looking at an expanded SFI that comprises of a lot of the old mid-tier options, along with the ones that were available in 23, with some changes in the mix as well.
Right, okay.
And then moving on from that, we will have higher tier available later in the year, which will be different from the way it was set up previously, because they brought some of the actions down into SFI and created a new branch of actions called endorsed actions, which we don't have a ton of detail on yet. We know that things like the species rich grassland will be available under that. We imagine it will be kind of similar priority habitat options available under that as well. But it's all slightly rejigged from what was previously available.
Okay. But hopefully then I suppose that makes it more widely available to farmers and might pull some more of them into sort of considering some of these more kind of environmental actions and integrating them into their farming systems. I guess the other thing is that, sort of we've certainly been experiencing as a business, haven't we? Some of our clients have been quite frustrated because they've been tied into some of these higher level stewardship agreements, and they've been watching others be able to take advantage of kind of higher payments under SFI, haven't they? So it's quite good news for them that this is coming, I hope.
Yeah, so under the recent announcement that we had with the expanded SFI, there was a small line in there about HLS and ELS holders, which stated that those that are currently in ELS and HLS will have the option to move across to SFI and higher tier, and they'll be able to move across without penalty. So those that were or did sign up to agreements that took them up until 2028, they'll now have the option to look at the new actions available and the new setup of the schemes and potentially take benefit from that without being penalised for coming out of their old agreements.
Okay, brilliant. Well, it gives them some flexibility at least, doesn't it? It gives them the choice. Okay, so that being said now, what options are there for the holders of the old style environmental and higher level stewardship schemes then?
Yeah, so I think now, being that we're kind of just ahead of when the SFI will open, 22nd of July, it's now time to start thinking about whether your current HLS still fits for you. There will be some farms out there who have taken on additional land and have been stuck with old agreements from the previous owner or occupier. And it gives them opportunity to look at the new actions, assess where they might be able to move across to similar or the same management prescriptions, but under the new scheme, but also look at potentially changing the way they want to manage their land slightly, particularly, as I said, if they've inherited that old agreement from someone else.
Okay, brilliant. So then, what's out there for, so sort of perhaps moving down a little bit in the landscape, what is out there for upland farmers under the new scheme that's come out, the 2024 SFI options?
Yeah, so I think under SFI 23, there was a lot of talk of there being kind of limited options for grassland farmers, and they're more likely to fall into the uplands as well. We've now seen under the expanded SFI that there are a greater amount of grassland options that have been pulled in from the mid-tier originally. There's also a greater availability of supplement actions, and they've also introduced more moorland actions under SFI, which previously in the 2023 there was only one action. We've now got a full suite of new actions that may be helpful to some of those upland farmers as well.
Okay. And do you kind of have any examples in mind of how sort of farmers or some existing clients might be looking at this and thinking how they might adapt them to their business?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people, they'll be looking to kind of either do similar to what they've already been doing, but take benefit of the additional kind of income and the higher payment rate. Within the supplements, there's also a little bit of greater flexibility. So we've seen within the haymaking supplement, that's now been split into two options, which comprises of a kind of standard cut and a late cut. That, I think, will be quite welcomed for some people who previously used the haymaking supplement under Countryside Stewardship, because previously you were bound by set dates in which you could cut. You couldn't cut for haylage until the 1st of August. It was later in July for unwrapped. And that has kind of been removed a little bit within the SFI. So there's no set date within the SFI, which gives you greater flexibility in terms of when you can cut. It now states that you need to close up for 8 weeks for the standard haymaking supplement and 9 weeks for the late payment. And there's no restriction on haylage versus hay. So that, again, it just allows that greater flexibility for farmers who haymaking is very much bound by the weather. And that was a frustration that I heard quite frequently in the past with the old haymaking option.
So it's a good example, I suppose, of where DEFRA's used this opportunity, haven't they? They've clearly listened to farmers, listened to some of the frustrations and adapted accordingly, and hopefully created something that's more flexible and will be taken up by more farmers, which is great news. Okay, so then you talked about low input grass with supplements. How can farmers make the most of that?
Yeah, so under the new expanded SFI 24, there's now the option to add in these supplements with low input grass. I think a lot of people were focusing on the herbal lays within the 2023 offer, and obviously the high payment, that was only for improved grass, which left a lot of people that were kind of didn't qualify for that and were unimproved grass stuck with that low input grassland option. I think now with the supplements that are available, you can top up that payment to maximize it. So like previously mentioned, there's the haymaking options that have been vastly improved on the Countryside Stewardship availability. There's also cattle grazing supplements available and native breed cattle supplements available. So when you're stacking those together with the low input grass, you can start to build up a payment that's closer to that herbal lays option without having to kind of re-drill grass.
Okay, well, that is good news. And then, so something else that they might potentially be able to consider would be kind of agroforestry. How is that being dealt with under the SFI 24 option?
Yeah, so agroforestry is a new suite of options that are available. They're split between SFI and high tier. So there'll be two options within the SFI, which are low density and very low density agroforestry. The very low density comprises of an average of 30 trees per hectare, and the low is 51 and above. And then medium and high will fall into higher tier, which will be available later in the year. It's a new option that's available, and it kind of sparks the interest in, or I should say, it kind of follows up on the hype around kind of agroforestry and that regenerative farming that's kind of come about in recent years. There's quite a lot of benefits to agroforestry, and it can be used with both arable and grassland options. And there's kind of a whole wide range of ways in which you can fulfill that action.
It's right tree in the right place, isn't it? And providing shelter for livestock and that sort of thing. There's all sorts of different reasons that they might want to sort of consider that option.
Exactly, yeah. And also it's compatible with other SFI actions. So you're essentially being paid for the agroforestry for having the trees there or putting them in place. And then you can also tag that on with existing actions for either, whether that's low input grass, the herbal lays, and also arable options as well.
Okay.
So you can build that up as a package and layer it with two actions. That provides quite a decent payment for those that are interested in going down that sort of route, or already have the trees there and tick the box already.
Yeah, perfect. Well, and I think in sort of some of the podcasts we've had already, it's talking about how it's integrating with your existing farming system and sort of providing additional benefit or allowing you to sort of do a little bit more. So that certainly sits well. So Olivia, you mentioned that later in the year that we're going to have an announcement around higher tier. What would your advice be to farmers who are now going to be eligible? They're going to be able to come out of their existing agreements without penalty. Would you advise them to act now and take advantage of SFI? Or would you sort of suggest caution and wait until we've got all the information on the higher tier schemes later on in the year?
Yeah, so historically, those kind of environmental stewardship, high-level stewardship agreement holders would have thought that higher tier, or definitely under the old schemes, would have been the route for them. And I think now with the kind of rejig that we've had in terms of the way that the SFI 24 will work and higher tier, we're seeing now that some of the options, or now called actions, that were previously under kind of old higher tier will now fall under the SFI or even potentially endorsed actions.
Okay.
We don't know a lot about endorsed actions at the moment. We know that the species-rich grassland and priority habitat option will fall under endorsed, and that will be available when the schemes become available in July. We're waiting for more information on the other 15 endorsed actions later this summer.
Okay.
But I think for a lot of those grassland farmers that were previously HLS, that had kind of options like the species-rich grassland mixed with a bit of low input, they're probably going to sit more into the expanded SFI with endorsed actions than higher tier. I think at a glance from the information that we have at the moment, it seems like higher tier will be aimed more at those that are going for a kind of more ambitious environmental project, whereas the majority may be better off looking at SFI and the endorsed actions that will be available this summer.
Okay. Well, that sounds like very good advice indeed. I think that's been a pretty comprehensive overview. There's still a lot of information that we don't have. And there are still questions, aren't there, going back and forth between the RPA just to try and understand some more of the detail. Is there anything you'd like to add kind of before we finish, Olivia, sort of any final thoughts on sort of the, stewardship and SFI and what farmers should be doing or thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got that little bit of time now until the 22nd of July when it's available. There'll be more information coming out this year. I think for those that are on the fence, take a look at the options that are available at the moment, but, be aware that there's more coming this year. And there might be something out there that comes later this year that might be better for them too.
Okay. So a little bit of wait and see and then sort of take action based on the information that then comes to light.
Prepare now, but don't jump just yet.
Okay. Thank you so much, Livia. That's been a really, really interesting conversation. I've certainly learned a lot. We will be looking at SFI across the sectors in more depth in our series of podcasts looking at the SFI 2024 expanded offer. If you head over to our YouTube or Spotify channels, you'll find the rest of the series there. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you soon.